off their national convention tonight. And if you remember, the convention was originally scheduled to take place last month in Milwaukee, but was, of course, postponed because of the coronavirus and will mostly be virtual instead. And as the festivities begin, here's some of the top speakers you will see on stage this evening, starting with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Vermont Senator and Socialist Torchbearer Bernie Sanders, and former First Lady Michelle Obama, just to name a few. And, you know, Sean, traditionally, when one party holds its convention, the other just backs off. But not this time. President Trump and his campaign are not taking a backseat at all. They're doing the opposite, actually. Instead, they have campaign events planned in battleground states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania all week long. So will the strategy work? Well, joining us now is Steve Cortes, Senior Strategy Advisor for the Trump 2020 campaign. Steve, good to see you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Steve, I mentioned this to Tommy Hicks, but, you know, I did two of the counter-programming efforts on behalf of the RNC in both 12 and 16. We were physically there, both in Charlotte and then in Philadelphia, to have folks come in to counter-program. What are you guys doing starting tonight to counter-program beyond what the president's doing?
Well, one of the things we're going to be doing right here at the campaign, and I'm speaking to you from campaign headquarters at our nation's capital in Virginia across the river, and we're going to be doing a post-show wrap-up. So at 11 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to have a live show. I'm going to be part of that, as are a number of other folks here from the campaign. And it's going to be, in some ways, impromptu. It'll be ad hoc, our reaction to what we see during the Democratic convention. So it's not just what the president's doing. That's incredibly important, of course. The fact that he is literally out there on the road. He is not snubbing Wisconsin the way Hillary Clinton did, the way Joe Biden is. He is in Wisconsin today delivering our message in person to the American people and to people in the Badger State. In addition to that, those of us here in the campaign are doing everything we can on the airwaves to get the message out. I'll give you another quick example. Yesterday, the Sunday morning shows, we absolutely dominated. We flooded the zone. The president himself was out. I was there. A lot of folks from the campaign were. There was not one single person from the Biden campaign that was on any of the Sunday shows, neither the candidates nor any of their spokespeople on the eve of their convention. I think that they believe, Sean, unfortunately, that they can somehow play a stall game now and then they can run out the clock and limp into victory. That's not going to happen, and we won't let that happen.
You know, Steve, I know you guys are being aggressive on some of your online stuff, like you mentioned, too, even taking over the banner of YouTube. But this is one of the first times that we've seen the president himself and actually a vice president do counter-programming this aggressively in these battleground states. What was the decision here to do this?
Right. Lindsay, listen, it certainly is unorthodox, but a lot of things are unorthodox about President Trump, aren't they? He breaks the mold in many ways politically, and he is this week. You're right. Typically, the opposition candidate would essentially get lost for the week. I think, for instance, George H.W. Bush literally went fly fishing for that week. He did the opposite of what President Trump's doing. But here's why I think it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, of course, is just we need to get this message out to the people. And because this is a very atypical campaign season because of the virus restrictions out there, any chance he has to go and speak directly to the people as their commander-in-chief is important. But also, in addition to that, what we're really trying to highlight here for the American people is the incredible contrast of this commander-in-chief who is leading, who is in charge, who is taking action versus the Biden campaign. I mentioned how they hid from the Sunday news shows. It's not just that. They have hid in general from scrutiny. They are not available to the media. They are not taking the kinds of hard questions that we are willing to take and that the president himself is willing to take. So we want to highlight that incredible contrast of a president who is transparent and active versus a campaign and a candidate on the Biden side that is largely hiding and silent.
One of the other things that's interesting, Steve, that's sort of different is normally at the end of the convention, you unveil the campaign plane. Last time for Trump, it was the Pence plane, but you reveal it's kind of it's part of the process in the history, if you will. Biden announced today they're not doing that, which really says that their plan is to stay in Delaware and to hang out in the basement. Is that something that you guys are going to take advantage of or that you think is probably smart on their behalf?
No, listen, we are absolutely, again, going to try to highlight this contrast as much as we can. The president is going to be on the road as much as is practicable, given that he has so many responsibilities as president of the United States. And we are going to physically campaign as much as we can, respecting, of course, safety protocols and the rules and regulations of every state in the country. But we are going to be physically there. We're also going to be there as much as we can in a digital way. You know, I would liken their strategy on the other side for people who are old enough to remember basketball before the shot clock. Teams used to get a lead and then they would go into a stall offense. North Carolina was famous for it, the four corner stall. They believe that they can do a four-corner stall. They think they're up, and they believe that they essentially hide from the American people, that they can limp their way across the finish line. That's just not how it works, of course, in this country, particularly once we get past the conventions, past Labor Day, when we're in a more traditional campaign season, and regular folks out there who might not be intensely political start paying more attention to the election. Again, we're going to dominate in terms of both having an active campaign as well as availability to the press and a willingness to face tough interviews and a willingness to face scrutiny from the media.
All right, Steve, great to see you. Good luck this week.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, will President Trump attempt to steal Joe Biden's thunder backfire? Let's ask Dick Morris, presidential political strategist and Newsmax analyst. Dick, good to see you.
Good to see you, Lindsay.
All right.
Well,
we just talked to Steve Cortes about this. You know, they're doing this unconventional method of maybe taking the spotlight away from the DNC. You see President Trump out there and Vice President Pence with this pretty rigorous campaign schedule in these battleground states. Do you think this is a smart move, or is it going to backfire on them?
Well, I think that it'll hurt Biden a lot. I think because it's not just being seen by the voters as a tactical or strategic move on Biden's part. They see that he's too frail and too weak to go out and campaign. And they really see this as a physical disability that shows that he couldn't be president. I think it's going to hurt him. But, you know, the thing that has me really excited today is that yesterday CNN released a poll that what they released showed that in the national poll, Trump was only 4 behind Biden, one of the closest polls they've ever had. And they haven't released this publicly, I don't think, but in the battleground states, they did an oversample, an extra poll, where they have it there, good. And Trump was only 1 behind in the battleground states. So this is a real closing of the gap. And what's significant is this is the first poll that has asked not are you for Trump or Biden, but are you for Trump and Pence or Biden and Harris, giving the VP names. And this was the poll where the gap really closed in these published polls. And it may well be that Harris is backfiring on the Democrats, that people are looking at her and saying, hey, we saw her in the primary. We saw her go far to the left. We saw her as a kind of Elizabeth Warren or a kind of Bernie Sanders. And we voted against her so much that she dropped out, didn't even make New Hampshire. And we do not want her a heartbeat away from the presidency, especially this man's heartbeat.
You know, Dick, here's the thing that's interesting. The Dems tonight, as they kick off their convention, are doubling down on Hollywood. You got Billie Eilish, John Legend, the Chicks, or as I like to call them, and then you've got Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Kerry Washington, all these people. Is this a smart move on them to get people to tune in by kind of making it Hollywood production? They've got all of the producers and the back end covered by Hollywood as well, trying to make it more of a show. Or is this going to be something that they kind of regret going forward?
Well, look who else they got, Biden. I mean, if that's your product, you better jazz it up somehow with some Hollywood celebs going all around it. And I think Michelle is a good stroke. But I think that basically it's going to be a very dull convention. But I think that the president is not just running around the country making speeches. He's making news. I mean, this guy in the last 2 weeks has covered pre-existing conditions on health insurance, reduced prescription drugs through executive orders, created an exemption at the end of the year through the payroll tax, expanded unemployment benefits, expanded the relief from evictions, expanded forgiveness of student loans, all by executive orders in the last 14 or 20 days. And God knows what he's going to do this week. This is a president who is not just campaigning, he's governing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty obvious. Dick, thank you for being here. I want to check in with you later in the week to see how the Dems are doing, to get your take, if you don't mind.
Please do. Thank you.
All right. Well, former Republican governor from Ohio and presidential candidate John Kasich is set to speak tonight at the Democratic National Convention in support of Joe Biden. But will it matter? We're going to discuss this with our company coming up next.